KUAM News, winner of the 2022 Regional Edward R. Murrow Award for Excellence in Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for the Culture Club.
KUAM News Hotspot is brought to you by
Pacific Points, Do More, Get More, and Calvo Enterprises, Inc.
The Menu, brought to you by King's Restaurant, always open, always local, and Ruby Tuesday Guam, home of the Fresh Garden Bar.
It wasn't quite as long and maybe not as dramatic as the U.S. House fight over the speakership, but the 37th Guam Legislature had its moments too, beginning with the January 2nd inaugural event when the new members were sworn in. They adjourned that gathering with no one able to muster the 8 votes needed to take the top spot. The Democratic majority was split in favor of Joe San Agustin over Therese Terlahi, 6 votes to 3. Meanwhile, the Republicans were united behind new Minority Leader Frank Blas Jr. with a unanimous 6 votes. Session was adjourned and temporary presiding officer Supreme Court Chief Justice Philip Carbolito called them back 3 days later to try again. As it turns out, the Democrats were unable to reach consensus, and the 3 holdouts against San Agustin turned to the Republicans to form a rare across-the-aisle coalition majority. Republicans are now guaranteed at least 2 members on every standing committee, and a Republican will be the vice chair. But Minority Leader Frank Blas Jr. says the most important concession they won was with the Rules Committee.
So the Rules Committee has that ability to be able to set the agenda, to set what is going to be discussed. Now, not just in one session, in all of the sessions within this term. So that's the importance of that there. And with the alliance that we have formed, with Speaker Therese Terlahi and Senator Chris Barnett and Senator Sabina Perez, their 4 plus our 3, we have the 7.
One of the key figures in the Rules Committee concession is the new chairman, Senator Chris Barnett, who as a freshman finds himself leading one of the most critical, if not the most critical committee in the legislature. All right, up to everyone, and we're joined now by Senator Chris. It's so hard for me to say that still. Senator Chris Barnett. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, Nes, thanks for having me. Yeah.
All right, so the intro package, of course, had to do with the speaker battle. Tell me a little bit about how that occurred. How did that go down?
Okay, which version do you want?
The true version.
That's the only one I'm going to give you. Well, I went down, obviously, Senator Joe San Agustin and Speaker Therese Terlahi. They just both wanted to be a speaker. And, to, again, be honest with you, during our caucus, there wasn't much movement. They both really dug their heels in. And, I've been really transparent from the get-go. I felt like the election results validated not only Speaker Therese Terlahi's leadership, but the leadership of, for the most part, the entire 36th Guam legislature. And so while we couldn't work it out in caucus, we did obviously work it out on the floor. And I think what we did, and not just securing Therese Terlahi as the speaker again, but in some of the concessions that we made to the minority members, I feel like what we did is we made the 37th Guam legislature stand on more stable footing in terms of our body being a real check and balance on the executive branch. I mean, that was one of the big goals I had when I ran. During the campaign. I mean, everybody knows I'm not a party guy, and so while some people who maybe hyper partisan have a different take on the events of the battle for their speakership. For me, I slept fine that night, and I felt like we really gave the people of Guam the deal that they wanted, and that deal was, whether you're a jackass or an elephant, that we're here to do the work of the people, and that everybody kind of gets a fair shot to do that work. And I think we caucused again after we secured Madam Speaker, and everything was fine. Our Democrat colleagues were moving forward, working together for the people of Guam, and I'm really glad that we're able to resolve that. I took a lot of jokes over in the CNMI. I attended the inauguration of the CNMI, and their installation of the Senate President and the House Speaker was kind of like bada boom, bada bing, and there was someone in the audience who looked over and said, "Hey, way quicker than Guam." But when I was talking with some of the elected leaders over there, they kind of expressed admiration and how we're able to maneuver and pull off that victory. Not just for the Speaker. Again, I feel like it's a victory for the people of Guam because, for the most part, outside of the Committee on Rules, we kind of maintained the leadership that the people had in the 36th Guam legislature. So I feel like it was a great win. There's a lot of juicy details from the caucus. Unfortunately, that, I'm just not comfortable sharing with you, but I will say, I've heard so much about the caucus. I mean, I know we had a conversation about caucusing when I was on the campaign trail, but let me tell you, I just was not prepared for it. I kind of went in setting the bar real low, but I get it. It's tempers flare, things are said, and I know, kind of being a student, a fan of like our political history, I know that caucuses are where a lot of these fallouts begin, right? And so I've heard some, legendary political rivalries actually started in the caucus, and so being mindful of that, I was trying to, for the most part, just be the best person I could be in the caucus. But like I said, tempers flared. But I get that it's about really kind of moving forward in a way that the people of Guam, the members of the majority and the members of the minority, we all want to do what we feel is best for the people of Guam. And I think that's why it's so high tension. You go in there and you want to pull out as big a win as you can so that you can, push forward the people's agenda.
Yeah. Now, you've made it pretty clear from the very beginning that you were a supporter of Speaker Terlahi. But let me play devil's advocate for a moment.
Sure.
The vote in caucus was 6-3, which is 2/3 in support of.
I gotta correct you there, Nestor. We never reached the vote in caucus. So the vote on the floor was.
But yeah. Was it clear that where the voting was going to go? I mean, was it clear that 3 were going to vote for Therese, including herself, and 6 were going to vote for Joe, including himself? I mean, that at least should have been clear because there had to be a point where you knew where the votes were going to fall.
Yeah, I guess we did. And the real curveball for me was when Senator Lujan nominated Minority Leader Frank Blas for Speaker. I don't think anybody saw that coming.
Well, the Republicans saw an opening. But the question was, should the will of the caucus, prevail rather than having to cross the aisle and make a deal with the rival party?
Well, again, if we had reached a decision in the caucus, which we weren't, I mean, I'll be honest, we didn't even come close to reaching a decision. We didn't even come close to securing a magic number to elect the leaders of the majority. And so had that happened, I would have been able to stick by it. But I think that, like I said, there was just a lot of tension, a lot of people who were just unwilling to move. But at the end of the day, I'm comfortable with what happened on the floor because I believe that it was the best deal for the people of Guam.
Yeah. So how did the Republican overtures begin? Can you talk about that?
Sure. I think they began early on, and they didn't. I'll just say there was never a point where it was the Republicans talking to just one of the candidates for Speaker. I mean, they made overtures to both Senator Joseph Augustine.
They were shopping. They were shopping for the best deal.
Sure, they were, and that's well within their right to do, but. I had a conversation with one of the Republicans, and I said, in a perfect world, outside of any arrangement or any kind of deal, if you put, Senator Joseph Augustine and Speaker Therese Terlahi side by side, I just felt like the Republicans would be more inclined to vote for Speaker Terlahi because, I feel like they did well under her leadership. They were recognized. She was a fair moderator of the body. And so that's what I thought. But, of course, the Republicans, like you said, they saw that opening, and I got to give kudos to them for not just using that opening to secure the things that they wanted, but for doing really at the end of the day, the right thing for the people of Guam. And that's what I think it came down to was the right thing to do was to maintain, again, the leadership of Speaker Therese Terlahi.
There would be some that argue that because the Democrats couldn't get out of their own way, that the Republicans got the much better end of this deal.
Yeah, I could see why people would say that, but I don't agree. I think that, at the end of the day, if I'm a Democrat chair of a committee, even without any changes to standing rules, I could appoint a Republican as a vice chair. So that was already kind of in play. And I think, again, for at least me and a few of my colleagues, like maintaining and improving the legislature's role as a check and balance, like that's all I was trying to do. And, doing what we did. And I think that it worked out well for the people of Guam. So did the Republicans get the better end of it? I don't necessarily think so. I think, again, that it's a pretty fair arrangement. And it's not as partisan as what, has been the practice around here.
All right. So we got to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Senator Chris Barnett right after this.
We're celebrating your special day every day with Cold Stone Creamery. Register your loved one for the Cold Stone Creamery Birthday Club. Email a photo, name, and birthday to birthdayclub@KUAM.com by noon on weekdays and by noon on Friday for weekend birthdays. Include a special message and we'll read it on air weeknights during KUAM News. Cross your fingers on Friday. You could be the lucky winner of a Cold Stone Creamery ice cream cake. And the lucky nominator will receive a personal treat from Cold Stone Creamery. The Birthday Club is presented by KUAM and Cold Stone Creamery.
All right, and so we're back. I've got one more question, Senator, about the speaker battle before we go move on to other important topics. So do you need to mend fences with your Democratic colleagues? You mentioned a little bit earlier that kind of resolved in caucus, and how do you plan to go about that? Because there's bound to be, of course, some hurt feelings.
Yeah, there are some hurt feelings, but we had a really productive caucus in which we selected the rest of the majority leadership, the majority leader, assistant majority leader, majority whip, and I think we were all just happy to kind of get to work. The battle for the speaker was indeed a battle for the speaker. But like I said, the very next day, we were right back in caucus, laughing, joking with each other, and just trying to get to work. I don't know if you know, but the legislature was essentially shut down for the first week of my term because the former rules chair had felt that with no leadership in place, there was essentially no central office of the legislature. So really didn't have time to have hurt feelings. It was like the day after we installed Speaker Terlahi and the committees were doled out. I mean, it was a minute after coming up from the session hall that I made the call to have everyone return to work in the afternoon. And then the bills started getting introduced. The resolutions started coming through. And the real work of the legislature began to kind of, ramp up. And so hurt feelings, yeah, but I think in a perfect world, if we're working hard to support the people of Guam, ain't nobody got time for hurt feelings, and let's just keep moving forward. And I think that's kind of, the vibe, if you will, that I'm getting from the colleagues in the building and out of it.
Yeah. So you're the chair of one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful committee, the Rules Committee. And as a freshman senator, that can be a little bit overwhelming. What's your take so far?
Well, I think it's interesting to note, I believe Governor Lulian Guerrero was also a freshman senator who ended up chairing the Rules Committee. So it's been done before. I'm even more confident in the great team that's assembled down at the central legislature, from the clerk's office to the fiscal people. Basically everybody, they know what they're doing. And these are the real stars of the legislature, because, it's not, Senator so-and-so doing everything. Senator so-and-so is usually held up by their staff. And that's, kind of the case here is a lot of the people downstairs have worked in this body. They have pride for and respect for this institution. And, a lot of them, for the most part, despite how political, we're a political body, I think most of them, for the most part, want to just kind of, have the ability to do their job every day, and just kind of do that. And so really great people here. I love it. Committee on Rules. Okay, so there's a lot of things with the Committee on Rules. And the last week, basically, I sat down with all the senior staff. We met with the employees and kind of let them know that, hey, let's get a couple months in here and then we'll see where we are. And let's just kind of concentrate on getting everything back up and running. And I think that, we've been able to do that. There's still a couple speed bumps, but for the most part, as a freshman senator, I got to say that the people downstairs Freshmen or not, they have my back. And to me, they're the real stars of this show. And I think that, I'm looking forward to doing excellent work with the Committee on Rules. And it's going to be in large part due to the great staff that we've assembled here at the legislature.
Speaking of staff, will everybody be retained? I understand, though, that there might be a vacancy in the executive director's position.
Yeah. So one of the first things I did was put Joe St. Augustine, who was the chief protocol officer. He's also served as executive director in previous legislatures. I appointed him as the acting executive director, and I maintained Agnes Cruz as an acting CFO. For now, the institutional knowledge that both of these guys have, and as well as all the attaches. I mean, talk about a gold mine, right? And I'm a newbie. I come from the media, reporting on this stuff from the outside, and I'll tell you, after a couple of weeks on this side of things, is way different reporting the news from out there, compared to making the news from in here. And so I really got to rely on those two. There are some positions open, and I'm always open to anything, but right now I think that I'm having the senior staff downstairs kind of show me the ropes. It takes a lot. We're running the building, the facilities, the maintenance, the staff. That's one thing. And that's not even beginning to get to the real work of the Committee on Rules, which is, getting the bills referred out to the respective committees, getting them back from those committees, and putting together the session agenda. But I think that what's going to maybe differentiate me from previous rules chairs is I'm not here to sit on anybody's bill. I'm not here to play politics. I'm not here to play, I don't like Senator so-and-so, so Senator so-and-so's bill is just going to get thrown into the abyss. I'm just here to kind of move things forward and put these measures on the floor so that, every measure, whether I like it or not, gets a fair shake for the people of Guam. I think that that's the kind of leadership we need with the Committee on Rules. And I got to say that, we've been moving things pretty quickly. This is kind of the easy part, though, shooting out the bills to the committees. I think it gets a little more difficult. But again, my staff will be standing by to make sure that I don't fall on my face. But more difficult to get the bills back, right? And then, figure out the agenda and actually have those Committee on Rules meetings. But I'm looking forward to it. It's exciting. I ran and it was a big change. I was very comfortable over in the media. I wanted to do something different and exciting to serve the people of Guam. So really, I mean, to borrow a phrase, I'm all in when it comes to this new role that I have here at the legislature.
All right, Chris, we're going to take another quick break, and we'll be back with Senator Chris Barnett. More discussion right after this. Don't go away, anybody.
A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it? I won't know.
Scary that it can be put into anything and we can't even see it or notice it.
All right, we are continuing our conversation with Senator Chris Barnett. Chris, we talked about your role as the chairman of the Rules Committee, but you got some other pretty significant committees under your wing too, like education for one, and public safety. Talk first about education. What are your plans? I know GDOE is in the process of onboarding a new superintendent.
Right. So first of all, I'm just humbled, and I'm really blessed that I got the two big committees that I campaigned on. I campaigned on this unchecked crystal methamphetamine epidemic, so I was very fortunate to secure public safety. I campaigned on investing in our youth, as an investment that always pays off for the future. And so I'm excited to have education. Is there a lot of work to do? Of course there is. In fact, none of my colleagues wanted education. When we're kind of talking about the committees we wanted, I was like, I want education.
Really?
And I kind of looked around the room and no one said, they're like, hey, you have it.
That's right? That's the biggest budget.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a product of the public school system. My kids are products of the public school system. The day after I got the Committee on Education, I sat down with Mr. Tom Babalta. He's the special education superintendent for GDOE. He talked about needing more funding to secure more one-to-one aides. They're also trying to move away from this idea of, one-to-one aides, which has kind of been like an entry-level position, and trying to kind of shore up those positions with maybe more training, right? And there's a lot of shortfalls as far as staffing, like specialized staffing for special needs. And that's something that I didn't even look at during the campaign. So I was really glad that I was able to sit down with Mr. Babalta and kind of put that on my list of things to do. Facilities, maintenance, those are also obviously big issues that, came up during the campaign. And so I'm going to sit down with the acting superintendent, who's also DOE's like head auditor, Franklin Cooper Nurse. And I'll sit down with him and we'll find out, hey, what do you guys need? Where do we go from here? I want to schedule some informational hearings. I'm trying to assemble the rest of my committee on education. But I know that we're all dedicated, no matter who I pick, we're all dedicated to improving the school system for our children and our families. And that's something, I'm really excited to do that. I've got a lot of ideas. I just met with Senator Sabina Perez, she's got a lot of great ideas to really address learning loss. That's a big thing that we're seeing during the pandemic. Other ideas that I have, teachers and administrative staff, they got that pay raise, right? And we talk about cost of living issues, right sizing our pay. If we're dealing with competitive wages that were competitive, 10 to 13 years ago, well, guess what? They're not really competitive. And so I really want to find a way to get the support staff. And I think first thing we got to do is we got to do the study to find out where the support staff are in terms of competitive wages. And then we got to find the money to give them those competitive wages. But, I think if you give one, you basically have to give all. And I'm not saying we got to give everyone in the government of Guam a raise, but, definitely if you're putting in the work every day for our children, whether you're a teacher or a school aide who oftentimes does the work of a teacher, or a clerk typist 3 who, is in a position, you have clerk typist 3s in other agencies, right? But a clerk typist 3, for example, and I know a few of them in GDOE, while on paper they might be clerk typist 3s, in reality they're really cafeteria workers, one-to-one aides, school aides. So I think that we really got to look at how we can support our support staff, the same way we supported the teachers and the administrators.
All right, on public safety, one of the most consistent messages that we heard during the campaign, covering the campaign, was the top concern among the community was our ICE crisis. As public safety chair, how do you plan to address that?
Well, Ness, I've secured, and so the standing rules, 37 Guam Legislature, the Republicans, they get to pick 2 minority members to every committee outside of Committee on Rules. That's 4. And then they also get to select their vice chair for the committees. Outside of the Committee on Rules, I got a Democrat. But Senator Chris Duenas from the minority he's going to be my vice chair for public safety. And I've worked very well with Senator Chris Duenas. He was a former minority leader. We've already, had our chat about public safety and the direction we want to move in. I'm going to be meeting with the chief of police. And, Senator Chris Duenas had kind of cooked up this great bill he has, and I don't want to say Mandania Drug Task Force, but when we talk about, combating the crystal meth, I think there's a lot of things that we just, not necessarily aren't even doing, but aren't even trying. And I think, I met with the chief. I feel like if we're going to take out something like the Mandania Drug Task Force and the things that it did, then we have to kind of replace that void with something. And I think Senator Chris Duenas has got a great bill. I think we also got to get those informational hearings and get the Guam Police Department and all the stakeholders down here to the legislature. I'm also across the aisle with Senator Tom Fisher. He's got some great measures that we're going to be introducing together that I feel are really going to hit this meth epidemic right in the gut. And I just got to send that message out there to those people who are poisoning our community. Your days are numbered, and we're coming for you. And we're going to do everything we can to kind of turn the USS Guam around. If we look at it that way, I think we're heading in the wrong direction with this crystal methamphetamine epidemic. I think that we've got some right ideas as far as the treatment goes, but on the enforcement, the prevention, the awareness, I just think there's a whole lot of things that we can do. And so I just say stay tuned to the Committee on Public Safety, the 37th Guam Legislature, because things are going to start happening, and they're going to start happening fast.
All right, we're going to take one last break, and we'll be back with Senator Chris Barnett right after this. Don't go away.
Get up-to-the-minute news, plus access to alerts, streaming radio, promotions, and more on your mobile device by downloading the KUAM News mobile app, available at the App Store now.
All right, Chris, final segment here. I want to talk more about you. So being in the media, you had a long, very successful career. You've mocked politicians at one time in your career. You've covered politicians one part of your career. You did investigative reporting on politicians in one part of your career, and now you're a politician. Why?
Yeah, well, I wanted to serve the people of Guam, Nestor. I feel like, again, being someone who lives on this island, who calls it home, and kind of maintaining and achieving the platform that I had in the media, I felt like it was the responsible thing for me to do, to get out here and serve the people of Guam. I think that the people of Guam have been very supportive of me since the first day I cracked the microphone. And it just reached a day where I said, you know what, I got to pay this back, not just for our island, but for our people, our children, and our families. And I know it sounds cliche, but that's really what it was. I'm just here to try and work on these big ticket problems that we have. And, from whether it's education, crystal meth, or just kind of changing the landscape and, improving the checks and balances here at the legislature. I feel like I came in hot and we hit the ground running, and I'm just going to keep running until we start to chip away and make those big changes that, I want to make. And I kind of want to address something else if I could. So the first session we had, I know that there's been some videos going around about me grabbing the mic from my colleague, Senator Will Parkinson, but I just kind of wanted to explain what had happened there, because I don't want people to get despite the appearance, to get the wrong idea about what actually went down. So, you talk about having a 25-year career in the media. For much of that, I wore headphones when I was on the radio. So I'm a little hard of hearing, and the audio down in the session hall, it really leaves a lot to be desired. There's an echo. And so when the Chief Justice, who was presiding over our inauguration, he had recognized Senator Will Parkinson, but I had heard Senator Barnett. And so what I do a lot of times to compensate for my hearing is I lip read, and all I saw was the par and bar. It kind of looks the same, and I know it sounds crazy. So that's why I went to go reach for the mic, because, being a newbie, I didn't know, like, oh, do I got to nominate her first, or what do I got to do? So, I was a little on edge, and I grabbed the mic, and it was so funny because at the time I was grabbing the mic, I thought my colleague, Senator Will Parkinson, was trying to grab it from me because I thought I got recognized to speak. And so that's what happened. I pulled Senator Will to the side and explained to him, and we were all good about it. We had a really big laugh about it. And, for that week, a lot of people were calling me Senator Chris Parkinson. I'm glad. So that's what happened. I'm not yeah. I know people had I think there was a column where they had referenced the gavel grab. It wasn't anything like that. It really was just me. There was a lot of nerves, but I thought that I was recognized, and I said as much to the Chief Justice when I was actually recognized for real on the floor that day. So yeah, I'm here to we're getting moving. I got the phones up. People are coming in through the office, and just being out there, I've always been very accessible to people. It's been a lot of fun these first couple weeks, and Ness, it's fun now. I'm ready to get to work, and I think that's going to be fun too. And I've got an open door. People are coming by. They're still telling me what they think we got to address, and I'm going to do my best to get to everything on the list. Okay, I got one more question for you, Chris. So you're still pretty young as far as politicians go. Is this something you plan to do for another, 10, 25 years until you can retire? And do you aspire to any higher office? I think it's a little early for those questions, Ness. 2 weeks in as a freshman senator, and baby steps. I want to see what. Obviously, I've got it's a steep learning curve. I'm not asking for any grace period or anything. I'm getting right to work, but it is a steep learning curve, and I feel like I'm deep diving now into learning a lot of the processes and the things that happen here at the legislature. And as soon as I get the hang of those kind of things, it's really going to make it that much easier for me to make like the big changes that I want to make. First, I got to learn the system and how everything works. So beyond this term, I don't know. Do I have aspirations? Let me see what I can do from in here. And if there are things that I can do from in here, then, I'm going to do them. If there's things that I can do in here, then I'm going to find a way and a place, to be where I can do those things. So aspirations, I don't know. I'm trying to focus on what I got going on right now.
All right, my friend. It's just like we were talking at the back porch of KUAM again.
Love it, man. That's anytime you reach out.
All right. Hey, thanks. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time, Chris.
Thank you. And thank you to the people of Guam. Again, like I said, I feel like, it was a little topsy-turvy in those first couple of days, but it's all about checks and balances here at the 37 Guam Legislature. I really feel like we're going to do a great job of that in this term, so stay tuned.
All right. That's Senator Chris Barnett. I'm Nestor. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you again next week on The Hub.